Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion. I am John Walters. I'm president of Hudson Institute. I am very happy to be joined by Ambassador Taranjit Singh Sandhu, ambassador from India, longtime friend of many of us at Hudson. He's been on several of our earlier programs with my colleague Walter Russell Mead and Aparna Panda. I've had a number of meetings with him to help us better understand India and work on U.S. India relations. Most recently, we were together at lunch with Foreign Minister Jai Shankar, who was here with a series of meetings with U.S. officials in the new administration. So, Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Let me briefly, for those who don't know you, say a few words about your background. Ambassador Sandhu became head of mission for India here in January 3rd, 2020. He presented his credentials to the president on February 6th, 2020. He is one of the most experienced diplomats on U.S. affairs in India. He has served here twice before as deputy chief of mission and in other senior positions. He came to Washington, D.C. From being High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka from January 2017 to 2020. He has been Consul General in Frankfurt for India. He has had a 30-year career, beginning with assignments in the former Soviet Union, and following the collapse of the Soviet Union, he opened the new Indian embassy in the Ukraine. He has a distinguished academic career, and to give us more time, I'm going to be a little bit unfair to his background because he deserves a longer introduction. But thank you, Ambassador Sandhu, for joining us, and thank you for all you've done to help us better understand the possibilities for a much closer future relationship between the United States and India.
Thank you, John.
To begin, let me ask you a little bit about the pandemic situation. India had a recurrence, as most countries have, with the spread of the virus. There have been variants. We talked a lot about what India was doing to prepare for the future with vaccines and other therapeutics. Where do we stand today?
So, John, as you mentioned that this pandemic has been completely unprecedented, and we have seen these spurts all around the world, up and down. And I think, as they say, no one is safe till everyone is safe. And nothing could have shown more clearly than what United States went through and what we are going through. So, like everybody else, the last 1 year, we have had enormous challenges. But we did start with an early lockdown. And in the first phase, we were able to keep the caseload mostly under control. We, in fact, started our vaccinations in 2021. And there was some kind of a feeling that things were back on track, things are normal. But then, as I mentioned to you, that this has actually taught us that it's a very unprecedented pandemic, and it struck us. What now we see in the current situation, that there has been a decline in the rate of increase. Let me just put it in perspective. In April, May, we had actually reached almost 400,000 cases. And now it has come to 40,000 this week.
Wow.
So it's coming down big time. State governments this time around, unlike the last time when we had done a complete lockdown, this time we have learned and we have done it locally. So each state government, which is a partner in this, has, keeping in view the local situation, gone on lockdown. So one result of that has been that the essential economic activities continued in the areas where there was no lockdown. I think one thing is very clear, that the vaccination drive which is being intensified, is very important. In fact, we have done almost 300 million doses, even though it's a long way to go. In fact, we are going in for large number of doses per day, but at this time, the total number of cases are about 30 million. That is as of 22nd June. The recovery rate has gone up now to almost 97%. And therefore, in fact, just the vaccinations in the last 24 hours, John, have been 8.6 million.
Wow.
So you can understand that we are making a lot of effort to get it sorted out. And as I mentioned, the caseloads have come down. Importantly, we are also working to enhance our domestic production, particularly of the vaccines. And in that, United States has been a great source of support from the administration, of course, from the US Congress, from the business, etc. But this is a work in progress. Things today are much better than it was 2 weeks ago, but we still are keeping our full attention, and the government is focused. Hopefully, in the next coming weeks, we would be in a much better position.
Well, that's good news, and I understand the challenges. You really make the challenges the United States faces being minor league compared to the magnitudes you have to deal with, and you've done a remarkable job in changing the dynamic of the infection. And I know the urgency with which you and your government have pressed the issue and will continue to do so. Let me ask you a little bit about some of the precursor chemicals and elements needed for the vaccine. Early on, I know there was a need for help. And the United States was asked to help to provide some of the material and some of the other therapeutics. How does that stand now? Have we met the need, or are we still working to try to move material to India?
See, John, again, I will be very frank and candid with you. Since this was an unprecedented situation, each of the countries have faced challenges. And because everywhere, understandably, the focus was domestic first. Even though this is an international pandemic, we very clearly understand, but the commitments of all the governments was to look inwards. And that's how the Defense Production Act came into operation here. That did impact some of the supply chains, but I must underline here that as soon as we were approached by our companies, we brought it to the attention of the administration, stretching across to the White House, to the National Security Council, to the State Department, to your health officials. I've been in touch with most of them, and they have gone out of their way. They have helped out. We have also spoken to many of the supply chain companies, and each one of them have been very forthcoming, and they realize the priority of our situation, and they have helped out. So today, our production is much better. It's ramped up, and hopefully in coming weeks, things should be almost back to normal.
Well, that's very good news, and it's not, those are kind words from you. You also mentioned when we had lunch a few months ago, the hope that the extensive pharmaceutical infrastructure that India has could also be expanded both for vaccines in the future, perhaps boosters in regard to COVID, but also other diseases. I recognize that there's an urgency to deliver vaccines now for COVID-19, but I presume those plans are still on the agenda for India, and I think it's important for people to realize how much of a kind of vaccine superpower India is and will be in the future. So could you say a few words about that?
Yes, John, absolutely. Very much on board. As I told you, there is, in the last few weeks, we have had some internal emergency, but I also want to mention to you that the production, for example, of Johnson & Johnson is very much on track. And that is going to be a total of 1 billion doses. You know the Quad initiative. In addition to that, I mean, Johnson & Johnson has already tied up with BioE, and the production system is very much in play, and production is going to start off just in coming days. And similarly, another vaccine, Novavax, as you know, this is a Maryland-based company. That's also very much on track. They are in touch, they are actually working with Serum Institute, and perhaps in the coming days, FDA clearance will also be coming. That's another one which will. Similarly, there are 6 such candidates. And why I'm mentioning that to you, John, is just to give you that there's so much of cooperation going. And this is a very important subject. And I'll just take 1 minute or 2 minutes extra to give you a bit of the depth. You know, United States and India have had a robust and a long-standing health cooperation. And in that, just a few years back, both of us had combined to come out with rotavirus vaccine. That collaboration, in fact, led to bringing down the prices of the vaccine to nearly below $1. And we combined to share it with our brothers in Africa and other countries. So similarly, essential medicines, COVID has again a broad focus on that. And United States and India, as I mentioned to you, stood shoulder to shoulder with each other. But at the same time, it's again very significant that affordable medicines and vaccines included in that, that is an important domestic priority for United States, for India, and the world over. And given India's strengths in generics, we are already, in fact, we are exporting almost 8 billion worth of generics to the United States every year, which actually helps the United States to save up to $80 billion in medicines, and also that this reaches people. So this is almost 40% of the US generic market. And why I'm bringing this to your attention is just to give you that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much of collaboration we can do with each other to help each other's domestic industry, as well as on the vaccine side, which we have spoken. In fact, more than about 60% of world's vaccines are being produced in India. And that's again somewhere where US technology and Indian capability are going to combine. And again, to the welfare of not only both our countries, but also the world over. And third part I will add here is our research collaboration. Now, capacity building in infectious diseases modeling, digital health advancement, hospital-to-hospital engagements. So these are some of the areas where we are trying to work together. And finally, in third countries, we have already seen in Quad, we are reaching out to what is Southeast Asia, but perhaps United States and India could work in the future in Africa, Latin America, and rest of the Asian countries. In the past, we have worked together on HIV/AIDS in Africa. So therefore, there is a great scope here, and I'm glad that you touched this area.
No, thank you for that, because I think the progress has moved so rapidly that many do not understand the current state, the opportunities, and what's possible for the future. Let me ask you in the area of technology. We talked about a little bit now medical technology, pharmaceuticals. We also have extensive cooperation on IT, on a variety of digital efforts, and I wonder if you could say something about where you see that. Also, of course, these are all things that have promise and threat to them. Biologics are both a savior and a threat, as we see with the debate over COVID and its origins and the danger we are increasingly aware of biological pathogens. But digital and other kinds of artificial intelligence and other things which your country and mine have extensive and sophisticated understandings are also now increasingly in the news as both benefits, promise, and threat. How do you see the cooperation between the United States? How do you see us growing the promising parts and developing actions to reduce the threat from cyber attack and other dangers?
John, a very important area. In fact, the digital and IT basket, if I may use this term, digital technology, now we are living almost daily in our lives. I'm sure you have participated. I've participated in virtual teas, in virtual lunches, dinners. That's the kind of, and today, thanks to the technology, we are able to do exactly what we would have been doing in person. So that's why, on the serious side, I would say this has actually taught us to stay connected, integrated, and empowered. And as you are aware that Indian tech companies, engineers, data scientists have been in the forefront of innovation very much in the United States itself. I have, in fact, even now, out of 200,000 Indian students, John, 2/3 of them are in STEM areas. Many of them are in the IT area. In fact, my attention is brought back to 2016, when I was actually 2015. I was the deputy ambassador here. And we had got Prime Minister Modi to specially visit the Silicon Valley to actually underline the importance of tech partnership. And that very much continues. You are aware that India is one of the fastest digitizing countries in the world. And we have the second largest mobile and internet subscribers base in the world. Now, therefore, it's very important. And as we know that the technology possibilities are really expanding, and India's digital transformation has a potential of creating a $1 trillion economic value by 2025. Now, that's also huge opportunities for US companies. Again, something which you mentioned, and I will add that in global partnership on artificial intelligence, along with US, India has been the founding member. And this has great scope in AI, 5G, big data analytics, robotics, quantum computing, blockchain, etc., etc. So the area is really vast. Now, you, of course, touched upon a very important aspect where all there is positivity here, there's also a challenge. I think United States and India both have witnessed that. I don't have to give you examples, you are well aware. So absolutely, it's a very important area. We are closely collaborating. There's a huge potential. Number of security measures that are required. Not only our top experts need to be talking to each other, but also working together. And I can mention that to you. We have number of platforms under which that is happening. But in addition, I would like this to be much further intensified, and we are making full efforts. And thanks to the pandemic now, the consciousness and the threat on this platform is also huge. And that has impelled not only both our countries, but also many of our partner countries. As you would have seen, even in the Quad, there is a specific initiative on what is being described as the futuristic technologies, that on the technical side, all four like-minded countries will come together and share research, work together in order to secure our networks.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Quad specifically, and the efforts by the Quad to create a more robust alliance structure for a free and open Indo-Pacific, to try to create greater opportunities for both economic exchange, but also security matters. How do you see the future of the Quad, and where would you like to see it go? What are the opportunities you see for combining a kind of regional architecture for both economic growth and security?
Absolutely. As you have said, Quad is a very important platform. As I started in the beginning, I mentioned to you that today's challenges are very international. Pandemic has shown us, and therefore the solutions also need to be multilateral. And Quad is one such platform. I'm not saying it's an exclusive platform, but there will be many such platforms. There need to be. And these are 4 like-minded countries: India, Japan, United States, Australia. You know, the first time we came together was way back in President George W. Bush's presidency, when tsunami had struck. After that, President Obama took it further. President Trump took it even further. And now, the first 100 days of President Biden, the first Quad virtual summit took place. And in that, this time around, very clearly focused 3 areas of cooperation have been underlined. One is the vaccines, second is the climate change, and third is the emerging technologies. And in all 3, already work has started. As I mentioned to you, in healthcare sector, we are already, that is Johnson & Johnson is collaborating with BioE, and production is, in fact, very soon going to begin. And we have a well laid out plan. In fact, it's a beautiful arrangement. It's American technology, Japanese finance, Australia's logistics, and Indian production capacity, if I may put it very simply. And similarly, in other areas too, we are going to get together, bring our own strengths. And therefore, Quad is a very important initiative. And in this, I'll just take an extra minute to actually mention to you that this coincides with India's Act East policy. And, you know, my Prime Minister had used the term Sagar, which in Hindi means ocean, but it actually stands for security and growth for all in the region. And here, I just want to just bring out that, yes, all our 4 countries have political democracies, they have market economies, they have pluralistic societies. And I just want to underline that it is not against X or Y, but as I have mentioned, that these are global problems, and we do, like-minded countries, need to come together. And in fact, again, to quote my Prime Minister, in the summit, he said, Quad is a force of global good. And we are all excited that the in-person Quad summit, which is scheduled to happen by end of the year, perhaps the United States is going to take the initiative, and most likely it will take place soon. That's
great. On that issue of economic prosperity, there has been a lot of change in U.S. thinking regarding our current trade relationship with the People's Republic of China. You hear here certainly the discussion of supply chain changes, chain security. You hear discussion of reorienting investment and business in some ways, and because of the increasing aggressiveness and some of the other threats that now seem more urgent with regard to the communist regime in China. Many people here, you know, are looking to India and other countries in the region as investment opportunities. This seems to be a good time, with also the change in administration, to look at trade agreements that would facilitate growth. I'm sure that India is also going to face, as we have, an effort to think about stimulus in response to the economic impact of the COVID virus. How do you think we should? What would be the steps India would like to see to increase our trade relationships, to open up more investment in India, to take the platform that's been built and really capitalize on it, if I can put it that way.
So, John, you have touched upon a number of issues. Let me try and answer each one of them. Firstly, because of the COVID, we have, of course, put plans for economic stimulus in the post-COVID world, so that, just like United States, we also have undertaken a range of measures over the last 1 year. We have had 3 different stimulus packages amounting to almost $400 billion US. This has spread across various sectors, and that has relevance to international trade and international investments too. Now, our packages broadly have focused on land, labor, liquidity, and laws, because each one of these needed reforms. And the government, despite facing a strong COVID-2 attacks, but has not at all deferred from moving ahead on the economic reforms. So I would say that while there are huge challenges, but the government saw that this is also to be used as an opportunity and moved ahead in undertaking a significant reforms. Now, for example, in the small businesses, SMEs, the government has taken series of steps. On the social security side too, a number of transfers have been made to directly benefit the people, so as that will also impact their purchasing power. Now, there are regulatory reforms which have been again undertaken. FDI caps, for example, they have been raised. There is hiking of FDI limits in defense production, insurance sector, coal and mining sector. Then, restrictions in airspace, utilization of opportunities in airport developments, research reactors, especially in our atomic energy sector, some of our power utilities, which were not open, they have been opened up. So international capital can come in. And we have seen that US FDI into India has crossed almost $50 billion. A number of important companies have come in. Then, of course, we have undertaken what are being called PLI schemes. These are production-linked incentive schemes in 14 sectors. These are, again, focused on things like mobile phones, electronic manufacturers, again, on solar and chemistry cells, then man-made fibers. Some of these areas, again, there is a solid potential for private investment to come in. And as I also mentioned to you, that insolvency and bankruptcy codes, these were outdated. Those have all been modernized. Now, one interesting sector is agriculture. Again, here, my government has made efforts to try and create one market in India. For so many years, we did not have. And if one market comes in, it'll be a huge boost, not only internally to all the farmers, but also for international actors who are involved with agriculture. So you can imagine, if there's one huge Indian market, how much of benefit that will be to many of the agriculture exporters from the US. So these are some of the areas where we are trying to open up. But I do tell my friends in the industry that if there are certain areas where they feel that we should be moving ahead, we would welcome their suggestions. And last, you did mention about the trade between our two countries. This is, of course, in the last 2 decades, there has been over $150 billion worth of trade between our two sides. But I do agree that this is just tip of the iceberg. Today, we have a presence of over 2,000 US companies in India, including every major Fortune 500 company. And you may be a bit surprised that there are also 200 Indian companies in the US, which have created almost 125,000 jobs, and they are generating over $22 billion investments in United States across all states. So therefore, there is a lot of scope here. We have, of course, have what we have called a national infrastructure pipeline, in which we have provided substantial tax incentives, and a number of US companies and funds are looking seriously through this to invest into India. So these are kind of openings. I also want to mention to you that already my Minister of Commerce and Industry has spoken twice to the US TR, Ambassador Tai. We are looking forward to taking the India-US Commercial Dialogue, the CEO Forum, and the Trade Policy Forum. These are three platforms which are available to get them to meet and take the process forward.
So do you think we need, on this already a robust trade relationship, do you think we need additional agreements, or do you think that the dialogue between the two countries and looking at specific areas of either reduction of any barriers or expansion of resources for cooperation will be sufficient?
See, John, all these efforts can further intensify and deepen our trade. So I would not rule out, look, already private to private sector movement is there, it will further intensify. But I think both sides, the government's essential aspect is to encourage that, to facilitate that. And in that, if we can come to agreements, they certainly will help out. And we are both like-minded countries. And now that there are supply chain challenges and other aspects which we have seen during the COVID crisis, therefore, that actually should impel us, both countries, to further intensify our collaboration as well as trade. And in that, whatever mechanisms are available and openings are there, both the governments should push for them. So in that, if agreements are possible, we should certainly go ahead.
So you think the bilateral relationship should be the focus of this expansion, and that a broader, a larger regional or global trade adjustment is not necessary to capitalize on the possibilities here?
So, John, I would say that yes, bilateral effort should be there. At the same time, other platforms like Quad or multilateral, they certainly contribute. But I would not substitute them for the bilateral cooperation. So, as I've said, that because of the emerging circumstances, United States and India as two like-minded countries certainly need to intensify and deepen our relationship.
Could we expand the educational exchange you mentioned earlier? Because I think that's been a topic here of concern in regard to the way in which our educational institutions may have been used as a platform by People's Republic of China, and the way the training of young people may have been less than straightforward. It occurs to me that you mentioned 200,000 students India has here. As we develop closer economic ties and ties politically between our two countries, that those kinds of exchanges really create a kind of muscles and bones that we can build a bigger framework on. Can we do things to expand that student exchange?
John, you are absolutely right. This is a bit underplayed area, but actually has a lot of depth. In fact, education partnership has been a source of strength, an important bridge between our two people. Sometimes we don't recognize it. Now, I'll just give you one example. One of the top pharmaceutical companies in India, which actually is producing an indigenous Indian vaccine, which is turning out to be a very effective one. is founded. It's a startup by a couple who studied in United States, went back, established that. In fact, what I mentioned to you about the rotavirus, it was this couple which collaborated with NIH to actually come out. So similarly, there are so many other bridges. And as you said, it's one area where we must work hard to deepen it. Now, in a several number of ways. One, of course, is simply the students. You know, in India, the United States, it's seen positively as an aspirational country, especially with knowledge and education partnership. So I'm sure when more possibilities come for the students, and I can tell you, we have created an education wing in the embassy. It's been in touch with more than 170 universities across the United States. And I can tell you, there is unanimity. A lot of presidents and the leaders of the universities are excited about getting more Indian students. So that's one area. But at the same time, we have a new education policy in India, which is now forward-looking. And under that, there is a lot of excitement about creating campus-to-campus relations. Now, COVID, as you have mentioned, has got us into digital mode. And therefore, we can have online learning, we can have joint degrees. There are so many innovative ways through which we can collaborate. And as I have earlier indicated to you, that it's very important that university to university, not only the first year universities, they anyway will find their way, but also the second and third year. And therefore, it's very, very important to give platform for this. And on a personal note, I'll just like to mention to you here, you know, way back, both my parents in 1956 to 58 came to Ohio State University, studied there and went back. So our connects are very old, but it's a great opportunity right now to deepen.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. That's a great priority. It's expanding. We have to get over the consequences of the pandemic to allow more exchange, but even the virtual exchange would be very important. I agree. And I think there's a lot of people looking for that opportunity. Can I ask you, as we come to a close here, can I ask you a little bit just to kind of update us on the security situation in the region as you see it, as India sees it? We went through some aggressiveness by the People's Republic of China. You had an attack on the border of India. We have had efforts by both of our countries to help provide greater security in the Indo-Pacific ocean areas, as well as in the Indian Ocean. Can you talk a little bit about how you see the threat now and what the United States could do to be helpful as India understands the threat at the present time?
See, John, India and China both are ancient civilizations. We have lived for years together. It's very important. As far as India is concerned, we want to have a peaceful coexistence with China. There are so many areas where not only both of our countries, but United States and many other international actors need to work together. Now, here I'll be very candid with you. I'm sure everybody is aware. We have a long border, which to an extent discussions have been going on, which was very, very peaceful over years. And therefore, last year, when certain aggressive actions were taken, we were, of course, very much surprised. But quickly, we did mobilize, and I must say in that a lot of existing facilities which we had picked up helped us to mobilize our troops. There has been a certain situation on our borders, but one thing is very clear. We have told the Chinese that ultimately the development of India-China ties can only be based on mutuality. And what in that are three important mutuals, I would say: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. Look, we have mentioned to them that peace and tranquility on the border is very important for overall development of relationship. So we can't have a compartmentalized approach in which border situation continues, but the economic relations are deepened. This has certainly had an impact in the public opinion on the Indian side. And as far as you have mentioned on, especially on some of the Indo-Pacific areas, our policy has been very clear. And on that, there is a commonality, similarity of thinking between the United States and many of our other partners, especially in the Quad, that we want to have a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. And of course, there are challenges in terms of maritime security, counterterrorism, piracy, cybersecurity, and also supply chains. And therefore, like-minded countries need to work together, in which United States and India are very strong partners. And we need to meet these challenges effectively and collectively.
Yeah, I understand, and I couldn't agree with you more about the need to better think about enforcing a kind of rules-based orders that's in everybody's interest. Obviously, as aggression gets to be a bigger threat, how we respond is greater. Let me ask you in that regard, stability in the region. I have to ask you how you see the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan changing the security situation in the region. You know that there is a division of opinion within the United States about this, but the commitment has been made to withdraw U.S. troops. What are the risks with regard to Pakistan's behavior, with regard to, of course, communist China, and general stability and your security in this region as a result of this move?
See, John, I think what we, that is United States and India, want in Afghanistan is essentially the same. Our common end objective is to have a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Afghanistan, a united, democratic, and sovereign Afghanistan. Now, our view is that the Afghan peace process should be Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, and Afghan-controlled. Now, any political settlement must be inclusive and should preserve the socio-economic and the political gains of last 19 years. Look, the United States has invested solidly, not only in terms of economic, but also in terms of American blood there. So therefore, as I said, that any political settlement there must ensure that human rights, fundamental freedoms of all Afghans, including women, youth, and minority, are upheld. And, look, Afghan people have seen more than 4 decades of war and unrest, and they do deserve a long-lasting peace and development. And as I've said, my own college mate, we studied together. He was a diplomat posted in the United States too. We lost him. He's a very dear friend and colleague. So similarly, United States has lost so many people, and therefore we owe it to the Afghan succeeding generations that radicalization, terrorist activities, money laundering, drug trafficking, all of these, which have a detrimental effect to not only United States and India, but world over, we need to avoid that. And of course, we are well aware, I don't have to tell you that there are countries in the region which may preach very well, but it's very important that they are held to their promises and their actions are actually taken into account. And for that, United States needs to be very clear-eyed in its approach and mindful of those vested interests. Those just merely promises which have been made over years and years. It must be ensured that they are kept. And therefore, the United States has only to look at the past history of its own experiences and hold these countries responsible to their commitments. In fact, we are already reading in the news what kind of developments are taking place. And I mean, look, I fully respect that there is pressure on the United States to get out, but that has to be done very smartly. And that's what we are sharing with our partners here. And I'm again getting back to the basic premise that United States and Indian interests, long-term interests in Afghanistan, are very similar. We essentially are looking for a peaceful, sovereign Afghanistan where development reaches all the people.
Yeah, I know from my time in the George W. Bush administration, India was a terrific partner in trying to stabilize. But I also think, if I understand what you're saying correctly, I almost think that the stability of Afghanistan is more dependent on trying to get external forces to stop destroying stability in Afghanistan, even more than the resolution from internal parties. That between Pakistan, Iran, China, some degree Russia, if they don't come together on a common basis, which they have not so far, then the hope for a stable Afghanistan, a democratic one where the rights of individuals are protected and their security can be maintained, is a real problem. That the real work to be done is on the external forces even more than the internal forces. And I'm not sure what our plan is to kind of do that, because there seems to be a real commitment to goals by the external forces that are not consistent with a stable Afghanistan. I don't know how much the United States and India can try to help to bring those partners into line, but I agree what I think is a thrust of your remarks, which is if you don't get the disruptors to stop disrupting, you aren't going to have success in Afghanistan.
John, I could not but agree more with you. And here again, I just want to underline and mention that, look, in this aspect, we are very clear-eyed. We deeply respect your sentiments. We want to be helpful, but we will also be frank with you so that you are able to see, look, our interest is not to, put a rosy picture, get the United States to get out of there and then get back to the old business. So that's why, as I said, we want to be helpful, particularly with the United States. We are working together. But at the same time, wherever we feel we should be cautioning you, speaking frankly to you, we are doing that.
Yes, yeah, that really is a true ally, right? That tells you something you don't want to hear, but it's the truth. Let me close by asking you a question. You actually mentioned earlier the issue of climate change and cleaner energy. And I know that's been a priority for your government. You're advancing much of the technology across sectors here. I think some in the climate change debate in the United States have been concerned that certain priorities are likely to be harmful to India, to other parts of the globe that do not have the wealth and developed infrastructure that the United States and some of the European countries have. And I wonder how your government thinks about the trade-off between, kind of global standards and allowing the development and the strengthening of infrastructure that really makes goals possible and doesn't hamper your own development and economic security in the name of global climate change. I think you're kind of on the front line of the trade-offs and how to properly understand this. Can you say a little bit about how you understand this and what the opportunities and threats are? What's the wrong way to do this versus the right way to do this?
On this, John, again, let me be very candid with you. Climate change actually is an article of faith for my Prime Minister. We certainly accept the green path to growth, but again, in our very frank conversations with the United States. We have been open. Now, we do need to keep in mind the development aspirations of 1.3 billion people. There are huge energy requirements, and most of those energy requirements, we are working very closely with the United States. Look, John, you would be aware that we are one of the top 10 performing countries as far as Paris Climate Accord of 2015 is concerned. The performance index, the CPI of 2019 clearly laid out. In fact, Special Envoy Kerry, who visited India, I'm just quoting him, he says India is getting the job done. So we certainly welcome, look, US rejoining the Paris Agreement. And we participated in the Leaders Summit, which was called in by President Biden. And India-US Climate and Clean Energy Partnership 2030 was set up. Now, I want to mention to you that in our energy basket, we have several components because our energy requirements are huge. And all those components in their own way play into the climate change. So let me start off first with LNG. Now, LNG in India is also a route to the overall climate change. You know, about 4 years ago, we were not even importing $0 of LNG from the United States. Today, we are doing almost 22 billion. Now, gasification of India's economy is a process of moving away from petroleum. And that helps in, again, meeting the development aspirations, but also flows into climate change. Similarly, in that basket, we also have the world's largest renewable energy expansion program. And we have a commitment to achieve 450 GW by 2030. Now, that's also very important because United States has a lot of scope in the renewable energy. We have what is solar. That's very critical. And you know, US has great expertise in battery storage, which is going to be critical. Again, a major opening for US business to invest in India, but also help India out. Now, there are two areas which are very clear, and I think United States administration and Special Envoy Kerry is aware of that. One is climate finance. The second is climate technology. And on these both, we are hopeful that United States and India will work together. And in the process, it will also provide huge opportunities for US companies to work in the Indian energy sector. They are already doing, but there is much more scope for that. And in that sense, I would say, also answering to what you had asked, that this basket, as I said, LNG, renewables, solar, wind, all of them flow together into climate change.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there's a very blunt discussion here about standards and about the technologies and where you actually have to make it work. I think we need to kind of think about what the metrics should be with regard to development, because this simply can't happen at the expense of people who need energy, need to have growth and prosperity. That's just a brutality masquerading as something good for everybody. And so, yeah, I agree, and I appreciate your willingness to discuss this. Are there any other things we didn't cover that you think we should be thinking about? That Hudson's famous for thinking the unthinkable and trying to look forward. Are there things that we have not thought about that you and your government see as either opportunities or threats that are common for us both?
I think, John, you have covered most of them. As again, I will repeat that there are very clear 5 sectors in which United States and India can partner in the coming future. First, as we mentioned, healthcare. And healthcare includes affordable vaccines and affordable medicines, not only for both our countries, which of course there is a tremendous scope, but also for third countries. And I think you are a strategic expert, you will immediately understand that why both of us need to partner in third countries. The second aspect I would say is, which we just touched upon, is the energy basket. That includes LNG, environment, renewables, solar, and climate change. The third basket, again, which you touched, is very significant, is digital, IT, innovations, and startups. And finally, knowledge and education partnership. That is, again, very critical. And I think in all these five, and sorry, the fifth one, which again, you know it so well, but I'm just touching it, that is our strategic and defense cooperation. I think everything Indo-Pacific, Quad, etc., everything also gets touched upon. But you are aware that we are also undertaking co-development and co-production. And we are working together. I must here mention to you some of the lift capacity, which we picked up from United States in some of, in the past few years, helped us big deal to move our troops to the border. So there's a tremendous scope in this area too. And the trade has multiplied many times. So I would say these five areas hold a whole lot of potential in substance for both our countries to work together.
Well, thank you. And as you know, we have a board member, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who is a member of the government there, who has pressed us also to think about emphasizing the principles that allow democracies to both prosper and cooperate more fully, to restate those when there's a kind of decline in confidence in the old globalism principles, and when the principles of the democratic world order are challenged by the Communist Party in China, that we really need, and by other authoritarian forces in the world, we really need to restate both the principles themselves and the benefits of those principles. And I can't think of anyone who's been more eloquent on that than you have. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for giving us some insight into the opportunities and the friendship of India. I don't think there's any more important goal for the United States than to deepen and strengthen its alliance with India over the coming years. So I appreciate your helping us move that forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And we greatly appreciate our cooperation with Hudson and look forward in many of these areas. And as you have touched upon some of the non-traditional areas too, I think we look forward with the platform at Hudson and continuing, ensuring, even like we said, education and knowledge partnership, getting our universities, getting our experts together on your platform. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful week ahead.
You too, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you very much.